And welcome back to the channel. I am Pastor Roy here at Woodlawn Christian Church in Lake City, Iowa. And this devotion is for June 25th of 2024. It's a Tuesday. This is the first week where I'm doing these on Tuesday and Thursday only. That's a change. We were doing them Monday through Friday, so I apologize for any confusion that may cause any of you. But I just needed to be able to allocate some of my time and resources to other projects in ministry. So starting now, we're going to be doing these on Tuesday and Thursdays of each week. So I will be putting them up the night before. Sometime I'll have them automatically pop up. My plan is to always record these on Sunday afternoon and to do both of them. That's why you'll probably see me in both videos each week in the same spiffy attire. So with that, let's jump into the book of Galatians. We're in chapter 4. Today we're going to pick up where we left off. We're going to pick up at verse 8 and go through 11 today, just a small bite. If you remember, we left off on Thursday of last week because we didn't do a Friday devotion. We got that close to the new pattern. Again, Tuesdays and Thursdays. We left off with Paul making a bit of a transition where had been previously going after the Judaizers and criticizing them for inflicting the law upon these poor new Jewish, if you will, Christians or Christian Jews, if you will, whichever way you want to say it. Because remember, it's still a sect within Judaism. It's not its own thing yet, and it will never be during Paul's lifetime. It's always going to be working under the auspices of the Jewish faith. And we need to remember that. That's why Paul was so he was so controversial. I can't talk. He was so controversial because he had created Jewish light, as I always say. So we left off Thursday with this transition, moving from that. And I remember, and I told you, if you remember in verse 3 that we talked about then, so with us when we were children. And Paul's putting himself in the place of the Gentiles that have become these new Jewish Christians. They had probably, most of them, previously been God-fearers and had been going to the synagogues, but hadn't made that final jump into being full conversion of Judaism. And we'll get to the circumcision part, but that was a big deterrent. But it says, so with us, when we were children, we were slaves to the elemental spirits of the universe. He's talking to the Gentiles there. He would not have called God an elemental spirit. He wouldn't have called the law an elemental spirit. Some people say that this is talking about the law. I can't see that. Why would he call the law a spirit? It's not a spirit. And he's going to mention elemental spirits today. And it's clear today in what we're talking about in verses 8 to 11. He's talking about the Gentiles and he's talking about the pagan religions. He's not talking about the law anymore. He's shifted gears. And in fact, this section from 8 to 20, the RSV calls Paul reproves the Galatians. And again, it's a Gentile church. These people are Gentile heritage. That's not their nationality is not Jewish. They are coming from this area up in Turkey, what's now modern day Turkey. So without further ado, let's jump into verses 8 to 11. Formerly, when you did not know God, you were in bondage to beings that by nature are no gods. But now that you have come to know God, or rather to be known by God, how can you turn back again to the weak and beggarly elemental spirits, whose slaves you want to be once more? You observe days and months and seasons and years. I am afraid I have labored over you in vain. Formerly you did not know God, capital G. That's the problem with I'm reading it. You don't know which ones are capitalized and which ones aren't, do you? Formerly when you did not know the true God, God with a G. You were in bondage to beings that by nature are no gods, small g. But now that you have come to know God, capital G, or rather to be known by God, capital G, how can you turn back again to the weak and beggarly elemental spirits? He's talking about these false gods. Any other God but the true God, the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, they're all are fake gods. They're not real gods. You have to remember that in the pagan world, there would have been just this plethora of gods of all different places because they would have had place gods. That's one of the things about made Judaism so revolutionary was that you had a god for the whole world. A lot of times they would believe that you go here. You go to this land, we've got a new God. Well, we're not going to worship the God from this land because he's not here. He's over. We're here. We've got to worship the God of this place now, not the God that we worshiped back home. So we're in a foreign land. We have to worship a foreign God. You even had wood spirits, you had tree spirits, you had river spirits, you had just endless amounts of spirits, elemental spirits, and you would worship these. If you wanted water, or if you rain god or sun god, what have you, god, moon god, luna god, luna. All of these saints, you had gods of all kinds, and Paul's saying, now that you know that that's a bunch of nonsense, how can you go back to that? You go back to bondage to them because you were constantly dealing with these, no matter what you were doing. The gods of the harvest, the gods of this, the gods of that, all of those sayings that you had to deal with. And there were no gods because there's one true God with the capital G. Remember that always. And so Paul's frustrated with them because what's apparently is happening here, maybe he's been dealing with the Judaizers, but there's apparently also a faction within the church of these people that were previously pagan, and they had previously had different, and there was a lot of different gods. Remember, Paul was in the the idol to a god, an unknown god, and all of that. But Paul's frustrated. These people seem to be backsliding, and you can't blame them because all of a sudden you had Paul come in and teach them all these things. You have these Judaizers come in, and now they're telling him Paul's all wet, and now Paul's coming back and saying those guys are all wet. Listen to me, put a curse on them. And so you can understand some of the folks' frustrations. And we have that problem in the modern church today. We've got all these different factions of Christianity, and people will get frustrated because different people are telling them different things. Some people are telling them, the once saved, always saved. Others people telling them you can lose your salvation, which you can. And predetermination, that you're predetermined in the womb, whether you're going to be saved or not saved. You're not predetermined in the womb. All God wants to save everyone. I'm sorry to break that news to you. You have that decision to make once you come to know God, like the one true God with a capital G, not those small gods, as Paul's talking about, those false gods. But at any rate, I digress. But you can have that very much going on. You've got the liberals and the conservatives. You've got fundamentalists, which I'm not a fundamentalist, and you've got the liberals, which I'm not a liberal. I'm a moderate, somewhere in between these two ends. And that was one of the things that kept me from Christianity, was the conservatives over here, the liberals over here. Didn't care for either one of them's ideas, and thus I was an atheist for a period of time when I was younger. And honestly, even though my ex-wife didn't know it, even when I got married to my ex-wife, I didn't believe that there was really a God. Didn't really become convinced of that until later, and not absolutely until after I'd gotten married to Gail, that I decided that there was in fact a God, and came to believe in it. And to give my life over to it, obviously. That's what I'm doing now. So the point of the matter is, you have to realize that those people can become frustrated and just say, I'm done. I'm walking out of here. That's one of the problems that people have. Why I'm spiritual but not religious, because they're tired of the nonsense. But you have to tolerate some of that nonsense, because the idea of being spiritual but not religious, I'm not a big fan of that. You need to be in the church. You need to be doing God's work. You can't just be an island. You're supposed to be helping other folks and bringing other folks to God. So you can't just sit out there and be your own island and say, I'm not going to tell anybody about my religion. I'm just going to have my religion. I'm all good. That's not what you're supposed to do. And I talked about that in the sermon today, which I'll hopefully get up this week. I'm 2 Sundays behind on sermons, but I'll get them up hopefully this week. That's one of the things that makes it a little bit easier for me when I'm not doing devotions every day, is that to make it a little bit lighter on me for getting the sermons up. But I digress. That's where we're at here. Paul is worried about these folks not just backsliding to the point of going from what he taught them to this being more law observant than what he's wanting them to be, and to have more faith. Salvation comes through faith, but to backslide all the way back to not being a Jewish Christian at all anymore, and now they're back to being a pagan, and he's very concerned about that. And he'll be talking about that today and on Thursday. So I think that's where I'm going to leave you. Well, I guess I'll put it, I am afraid I have labored over you in vain. He doesn't want to, he spent a lot of time with them. He nursed this church, and he doesn't want them to backslide. He doesn't want them to lose their salvation. And that's a big concern it should be a concern for all of us. It should be a concern for ourselves and our own lives, but it should be our concern for our family and friends as well. Again, sermon for today would be a good one. The sermon for June 23rd. Take a look at it. It'll be up in the next few days. All right, with that, I'm going to let you go for today. I'll see you on Thursday. Again, we're just doing these on Tuesdays and Thursdays. I apologize if that causes any confusion. Have a very blessed day. Be a blessing to someone today. Tell them about Jesus. Tell them about the love of God for them. That'd be a wonderful way to bless them, don't you think? And that's what we're called to do. God loves you. Take care. See you Thursday. Bye-bye.